Hi, I'm TV's Kabir Bhatia, and here's the real story of the fake news. Weekend Update started because Chevy Chase would do a fake newscast when he was part of Channel 1, the comedy troupe that later made the film The Groove Tube, although he doesn't do the news in the film. They got the title because the networks used to include short news updates during commercial breaks back then, and at the same time, on weeks when there wasn't a live SNL episode, NBC broadcast an unconventional news show called Weekend. So they put the two of them together and called it Weekend Update. Chevy talked his way into being on camera since he was technically only a writer, but after that first episode, the network said they definitely wanted to see more of him and Weekend Update. Because he was saying his name on camera every week, Chevy became the first breakout star from SNL. Before season 2 started, he said he'd leave at the end of his writer's contract, which was only a year. In the season 2 premiere, he famously injured himself, and Jane Curtin had to take over for the next 2 weeks. Then Chevy was back for 3 weeks to finish out his commitment to SNL, and then permanently handed things over to Jane. Right around this time, a competing network, ABC, made big news when they hired Barbara Walters to anchor their network news alongside Harry Reasoner. There had never been a man and a woman anchoring the network news together, and as a parody of that, for season 3, SNL put Dan Aykroyd as Jane's co-anchor. This probably wasn't the greatest idea because he does such specific character work, and he was also so busy on the show already. So he would frequently seem flustered or miss cues despite being a comedy genius. And at the end of season 3, they got rid of this arrangement as well as the new set and put Bill Murray as Jane's co-anchor. He had kind of a smarmy delivery during season 3 as the showbiz correspondent, but after his first week of season 4, he settled down into a more conventional delivery. Dan Aykroyd still showed up sometimes as the station manager. Jane and Bill were anchors for seasons 4 and 5, and then Lorne Michaels and the cast and writers all pretty much left the show. When SNL returned for season 6, Charles Rocket was the new anchor, but the segment and the entire show was getting roasted by critics. That's ironic because Charles actually had been a news anchor in real life in Rhode Island, Colorado, and Nashville. One of the few bright spots was his Rocket reports, which were done on location and were pre-taped. But after the Christmas hiatus of season 6, the producers decided to give him a co-anchor with Gail Mathias. Things didn't improve, and then if you know your SNL history, Charles dropped an F-bomb on the air at the end of episode 11. The following week, the show presented 3 short news segments, including one with that week's host, Bill Murray. After that, a new producer was brought in, Dick Ebersole, and he fired pretty much everyone, not including Bill Murray's brother, Brian Doyle Murray. He was one of the few people to stay from season 5 and continue into season 6. After a 1-month hiatus, SNL season 6 came back in the spring of '81 with Chevy Chase acting as the unofficial host. He also anchored Weekend Update on a recreation of the original set. The following week, the show was canceled because of a writer's strike. SNL didn't return for season 7 for another 6 months. When it did, Weekend Update was renamed SNL Newsbreak, and the anchor was the guy who didn't get fired a few months earlier, Brian Doyle Murray. His co-anchor for the first few weeks was Mary Gross, but then I think her delivery was too slow and she became a correspondent. This would happen on and off for a few months, although in February and March he was pretty much the co-anchor the entire time. After that, she was replaced by Christine Ebersole. She's a Broadway legend now, but back then she was doing a 1-year stint on SNL. At the end of the season, she and Brian Doyle Murray both left the show, and when season 8 started, the segment was again renamed, this time to Saturday Night News, and they had a brand new set that looked a lot like the ones being used by NBC's owned and operated stations, like WNBC New York. The new anchor, Brad Hall, did fine for season 8, but then he started to clash with Dick Ebersole about political material behind the scenes. After the Christmas show of season 9, there was a huge shakeup for Saturday Night News. The first show of 1984, Joe Piscopo and Mary Gross anchored election segments, and Brad Hall was given a token segment of his own. The next week, they just had cast members doing guest commentaries, and after that, it was pretty much whoever was hosting. So we'd get comedy legends like Don Rickles and Robin Williams, but also actual NBC newsman Edwin Newman, who was about to retire. This is how things went for the rest of season 9. When season 10 premiered, Billy Crystal anchored as Fernando. Later in the show, there was a segment with Julia Louis-Dreyfus interviewing Jim Belushi as the publisher of Hustler magazine. They had a brand new set and even an opening sequence like the one used by the NBC Nightly News. But I guess nobody was happy with this because the following week they reverted to the old set and just using that week's guest host. Finally, 7 episodes into season 10, Christopher Guest became the regular anchor. Again, this didn't make a lot of sense since he has such a dry delivery, but I liked him. The following week, December 8th, 1984, Ringo Starr hosted. That week's table read went so badly that they had to quickly rewrite the entire show, and there was no time to do Weekend Update. Christopher Guest was back the following week, and then he kept anchoring for the rest of the season, although in February and March there was a writer's strike, and the first episode when they came back from that was basically a big commercial for WrestleMania, and again they had no news segment. That's the only 2 times that's ever happened on SNL. After season 10, the cast and writers again pretty much all left, and Lorne Michaels came back to replace Dick Ebersole. For season 11, there was a brand new set which looked like the one for the NBC Nightly News, and Pittsburgh-based stand-up comedian Dennis Miller became the anchor. Whatever you think of his politics today, he was pretty nonpartisan in the 1980s. After season 11, the only real changes to his update were that the set was lightened up a bit. Dennis Miller would anchor through season 16, and then he would leave to host his own late-night talk show and be replaced by Kevin Nealon. He got a redesigned set and was there for the next 3 years. For season 20, Norm Macdonald became the new anchor of Weekend Update and is the greatest anchor of all time. He would infamously be fired halfway through season 23, and depending on who you ask, he was either fired for making too many jokes about O.J. Simpson, a good friend of the president of NBC, or he was fired because he was so rebellious within the show. The president of NBC says it's because Weekend Update wasn't funny. He was previously a producer for Monday Night Football and for the Olympics, so that tells you that he must be hilarious in real life. After Norm was fired over the Christmas break of season 23, Colin Quinn took over Weekend Update. And when the show returned for season 24, the set had been redesigned and would stay that way until the end of season 25. That's when Colin Quinn left, and once again there was an anchor team of Tina Fey and Jimmy Fallon. They also finally retired the projection screen, displaying graphics over the anchor's shoulders. After 4 years, Jimmy left the show and was replaced by Amy Poehler. During season 31, Tina Fey missed the first 2 shows because she'd had a baby. She was replaced by Horatio Sanz. She left at the end of season 31, and for season 32, she was replaced by Seth Meyers. Seth and Amy anchored for seasons 32 and 33, but a few episodes into season 34, Amy left to have a baby. She'd come back for the final 2 shows before the Christmas hiatus and then leave, making Seth the solo anchor except for some occasional cameos. He would finish out season 34 and anchor by himself for seasons 35, 36, 37, and 38. For season 39, it was announced he'd be leaving in February to host Late Night. So to make the transition easy, Cecily Strong became the co-anchor, and then after Seth left, she was joined by Colin Jost for the last 7 shows of season 39. But then Cecily decided to go back to being a cast member, so for season 40, she was replaced by Michael Che, my second favorite anchor. And now, as SNL officially turns 50, the 2 of them are in their 11th season of anchoring Weekend Update.